On October 9th, 2015, at 1:20 a.m., students living in the Mountain View Hall dorms at Northern Arizona University were settling down after a night of partying. Suddenly, they heard screams coming from the parking lot. Just as they looked out their windows, they witnessed a gunman firing a barrage of bullets at several people. The Flagstaff Police Department was flooded with 911 calls.
There's a guy outside and he's shooting people. He's yelling right now. There's people on the ground.
Yes, someone's shooting a gun. Someone got shot outside of Mountain View Hall. Someone needs to come right now and get injured.
The victims, NAU students Colin Brew and Nick Peering, were critically injured. Several heroic bystanders, along with the gunman's friend Jacob Mike, rushed over to help the victims. As they were applying pressure to the victims' wounds, the gunman was shoved to the ground and attacked. In a panic, Jacob called 911.
Flagstaff 911, where's your emergency? 911. 911.
Mountain View. This guy's killing my friend.
What's going on there?
Someone is attacking my friend.
Do they have any weapons?
How does him?
Do they have any weapons?
Yeah.
What kind of weapons?
I'm not sure. It's a gun.
It's a gun?
Are you okay, dude?
Stay on the line.
More pressure. Put more pressure. I know. You're trying to hurt me. I'm sorry.
The call suddenly disconnected as Jacob attempted to protect his friend. Several more shots rang out and another wave of 911 calls poured in.
I need an ambulance on Franklin Avenue. Like 3 boys just got shot.
The 3 boys?
Yeah, like something like that. My boyfriend's shot in the neck, one shot in the abdomen. I need an ambulance. I need an ambulance right now. My boyfriend's shot. Oh my God.
Hi, I believe that there's a guy, he has a gun, and he just shot some people outside.
Where?
At NAU at Mountain View. Did he just run off?
3 shots, probably a minute break, and then 2 more shots. Can you see the shooter? No. And what does he look like?
I don't know. There's a bunch of people outside. I don't know who the shooter is.
Due to the poor lighting conditions in the parking lot, none of the callers were able to provide an accurate description of the suspect. A fleet of police cruisers stormed the Mountain View parking lot where they found 3 victims scattered on the ground. Kyle Zintek was shot twice in the back, Nick Peering was shot in the left arm and hip, and Colin Brew had been shot in the chest and the right shoulder and was unresponsive. Bystanders were still tending to their wounds, but since the police were uncertain who the shooter was, they were all ordered to get down on the ground.
This isn't us. This is the other guy.
Where's the other guy?
It's right there.
Get on the ground!
Get
on the ground!
Everybody on the ground.
At the north end of the parking lot, another group of police cruisers arrived at the campus entrance where they encountered 18-year-old NAU freshman Stephen Jones and his friends. Stephen immediately told the officers that he was the shooter, and he was promptly arrested.
Turn around! On the ground! On the ground!
Shot, go help them.
Hold on! You do not move! Do not move!
Officer, please, can you answer me? I'm gonna be okay, please.
You're gonna be fine for right now.
Please, I'm so sorry, please.
Hang on, buddy. Hang on.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Hang on.
Oh my God! Please, officer, please. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God, please.
Hang on, sir. Hang on.
Although Stephen was visibly shaken up, he was clearly more concerned about the condition of the people he had just shot.
Please go help them, officer, please. Please go help them. I'm so sorry, please. Please go help them.
Also, his behavior throughout his arrest resembled that of a scared child rather than a ruthless killer.
I'm so scared of my mom.
Stand up. Where's the firearm?
It's over there by the guy with the flannel and the beard. Please, officer, I'm so scared. Please help me.
Hey, flannel, hang on. Hey, one of you, flannel and beard, there's a gun over there. Stand up for me.
I can't.
Roll over, stand up. Spread your feet. Spread your feet more. Stephen, come with me.
Okay. Oh my God, please help me. I'm so scared. I can't. I can't.
Have a seat.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Just have a seat.
I can't be
Have a seat.
please.
Have a seat.
Once Stephen was left alone in the cruiser, he was flooded with emotions and his scared demeanor turned into a full-on meltdown.
No! Why did you hurt me? You chasing my friend. Why were you trying to hurt me? Why?
Around this time, a random woman came running up to one of the officers from across the street. She told the officer that there was another victim. Apparently, during the second round of gunshots, another student named Nick Prado was struck in the neck. He immediately fled the scene, running across the street to 262 East Franklin Avenue, aka the Courtyard. The officer followed her back to the apartment and saw Nick Prado lying on the ground while other students pressed a towel against his neck to manage the bleeding. While waiting for the EMTs to arrive, the officers continued securing the crime scene. With the shooter now in custody, the officers decided to check the surrounding area for any possible threats.
We need to confirm that one shooter is our only shooter.
They swiftly evacuated Mountain View Hall and cleared the building room by room. Back outside, the paramedics had finally arrived on the scene. The victims were loaded into the ambulances and taken to the Flagstaff Medical Center for emergency surgery. Meanwhile, the officers headed back to the cruiser to touch base with Stephen, who had calmed down a bit since the last time we saw him.
You identified yourself to me as the shooter.
Nobody else, none of my friends.
There's nobody else involved.
No, nobody but me. I take all the responsibility.
Oh my God. How bad are they hurt?
Hang on, I don't know yet.
Do you know if they're okay?
I don't know if they're okay. I know that some people were transported to the hospital.
I'm so scared. Can I call my mom?
We'll call your mom for you. We'll just got to figure all this stuff out first, okay? Stand by with me.
Stephen was unable to call his mom until after he was processed at the police station. During the call, his mother sharply advised him not to say anything until he could speak with his father. The call ended and he was quickly led to the interrogation room.
You can just have a seat over there in that chair.
Can you put my hair on my face, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you are.
He appeared to be more composed now, but panic set in once again when he noticed blood on his hands.
Okay. So what we're going to do... Okay, we're just going to put them on top. So just... That's fine. It's fine, Stephen. So put your hands together like this. There you go. Perfect.
Sorry if I spit on you.
You're fine. I know it's not intentional. So just have a seat, okay?
Stephen eventually calmed down again, but as he quietly waited for the detective, his thoughts began to spiral.
You're not going to die, no.
Both panic attacks and catastrophization can be telltale signs of trauma. But without a direct assessment from an expert, it's hard to say whether Stephen is genuinely shattered by the events that occurred, or if this is all an act to deceive the authorities. The detective entered the room just minutes later.
What happened here?
Although he initially followed his mother's advice, he quickly folded and told his side of the story from the very beginning. It was a typical Friday night, partying with his fellow freshmen and playing some Guitar Hero at an apartment complex called The Grove.
Did you guys imbibe on any alcoholic beverages?
The girls were, they had beers. I had a sip of my friend's beer, but I knew I was driving and I couldn't afford to.
Sober Stephen quickly got bored, and after about a half hour, he and his friends Jacob, Shay, and Hunter decided to head back to the campus where his car was parked. However, Hunter was walking ahead of the group, and about halfway to their destination, they could no longer see him. Confused about Hunter's whereabouts, they noticed that there was a party happening across the street from the campus at a place called the Courtyard. Some important context about the Courtyard is that it is the home of the Delta Chi fraternity. The 4 victims were all members of Delta Chi. Delta Chi parties have a reputation of frequently getting out of hand. Fights would often break out. And it wasn't uncommon for the police to step in.
It's 9 in the morning and I can hear your music from at least a block away.
However, Stephen and his friends were just freshmen who had only been at NAU for a few weeks. They had also recently pledged to a different fraternity known as Sigma Chi. Unaware that the Courtyard was the home of Delta Chi, a potentially unwelcoming brotherhood, they decided to knock on the door to see if Hunter was there.
10 or 12 dudes came out and they started like, what are you talking about? Get the off our porch. And then we just decided to turn around and walk away.
Despite walking away from the conflict, the Delta Chi fraternity brothers wouldn't let up. especially Colin Brew, who was being extremely antagonistic.
What were they saying?
I'm gonna kill you, but you couldn't fight to go back to the freshman dorm. They were obviously very drunk.
Very drunk is an understatement. A medical report would later reveal that Colin's blood alcohol was at 0.28%, 3.5 times the legal limit, and just a few decimal points away from alcohol poisoning. The Delta Chi boys continued to advance towards the freshmen, following them into the middle of the street. Then, out of nowhere, someone ran up and sucker punched Steven.
Just, like, rocked my world. I had no idea what was going on. My glasses fell off. I could barely see.
After regaining his footing, the Delta Chi boys followed him as he retreated back to his car. Although he was able to unlock the doors with his fob, he was unable to find his keys to start the car. He began to panic as they got closer, so he grabbed the pistol from his glove box and pointed it at them as he exited the vehicle.
I said, I have a gun, don't move. And then... And they said, I'm gonna kill you. And two of them ran at me as fast as they could. He was running at me. He was staring right at me. He was saying he was going to kill me. I was afraid for my life.
While many argue that firearms shouldn't be allowed on campus, Arizona law states that it is legal as long as the firearm is locked in your car and out of sight. Steven said that after defending himself from Colin and Nick, the rest of the fraternity jumped him, which would explain the several injuries on his face. Steven then claimed that while being battered on the ground, he decided that the only way to escape this situation without shooting anybody else would be to scare them away.
I grabbed my gun and I just put it in the air. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I wasn't even aiming at anybody.
How many rounds did you fire?
I don't know. I just remembered my training. My dad trained me.
It turns out that Steven's father was an NRA-certified firearm instructor, so he was well versed in firearm safety and handling, including self-defense situations.
I was trained to fire until it's not necessary to anymore.
At this point, the detective momentarily left the room, and when he came back, he updated Steven on his alleged attackers.
3 people in the hospital. 1 has passed away.
Nick Peering and Nick Prado eventually had a full recovery. It turns out that the bullet that struck Nick Prado's neck had shattered the chain of his necklace and dented the tiny heart-shaped cremation pendant that hung from it, which contained his grandfather's ashes. The bullet ended up slicing through his neck less than 1/10 of an inch from his aorta, the largest artery in the human body. Nick's parents believed that this was a case of divine intervention, and his grandfather saved his life. As for Kyle Zintek, he ultimately lost a kidney and suffered significant liver damage. Tragically, Colin Brew had succumbed to his gunshot wounds and was pronounced dead. Following his interview, Steven's injuries were photographed. His lips were cut up and his head was scraped and bruised. Also, when they took his clothes as evidence, they noticed that he had many more small injuries all over his body. He was given a white jumpsuit, but was later upgraded to a blue jail suit. He was charged with first-degree murder and 3 counts of aggravated assault. While Steven sat behind bars, the students at NAU were just starting to process what had happened. Their lives had been changed forever.
Our hearts are hurting because none of them deserved it, and none of them wanted to put anyone in danger.
In the evening, a student vigil was held where Colin's peers and Delta Chi brothers mourned their loss.
He's in the center of the hug because he's still alive. He's one of the victims of the NAU shootings, and as his friends try to hold him close, it hurts. His wound still so fresh. And while there is a bandage for the body, there isn't one for what so many students here are suffering. If ever a brotherhood has been needed, it's right now.
At his arraignment hearing, Steven pled not guilty, and his bond was set at $2 million. But to everyone's surprise, after 6 months in the Coconino County Jail, Steven was granted pretrial release and was allowed to stay with his parents under strict conditions including 24/7 GPS monitoring. It seemed that the defense had presented some hard evidence suggesting that Steven was not a danger to the public. But the choice to release Steven was deeply troubling to the families of the victims. If the defense could convince the judge to set Steven free, could they convince the jury to do the same? On April 17, 2017, a year and a half after the shooting, Steven's trial began. County Attorney Ammon Barker delivered the prosecution's opening statement.
The defendant, Steven Jones, murdered a young man and seriously injured 3 others because his pride was hurt. Now, before this night, none of these victims knew the defendant, never associated with him, didn't know him to like him or dislike him. But that night, to the victims, the defendant was an assassin emerging from the darkness, and they had no chance to protect themselves before the defendant unloaded 10 rounds from his gun and changed their lives forever. All this because the defendant wanted payback. This case is not a whodunit. There's no mystery to who killed Colin Brew, who shot Nick Peering, Nick Prado, or Kyle Zenteg. The defendant did. The question for you during this trial will be, what was the defendant's intent when he shot these 4 unarmed victims? This was aggravated assault, and it was premeditated murder. At the end of this case, the state will ask you to hold him accountable for what he's done. For the murder of Colin Brew and for the shooting of Nick Peering, Nick Prado, and Kyle Zenteg, and find him guilty on all charges.
During the defense's opening statement, they backed up Stephen's story from his interrogation, saying that the shooting was justified because it was purely an act of self-defense.
When you hear this case, you will find that this is not a case about an assassin emerging from the dark on a rampage. It's not even close. This is a case about an 18-year-old kid who was just a couple weeks into his college career, a freshman at NAU. And he found himself in a situation where he was surrounded, bullied, threatened, and attacked, and did what he had to do to protect himself.
Throughout the trial, a total of 35 witnesses took the stand. Using bits and pieces of their testimonies, our team has edited together a concise and comprehensive retelling of that horrible night. It combines the perspectives of the bystanders, Delta Chi fraternity members, and Sigma Chi pledges, including Stephen himself. We will start from the moment that Stephen, Jacob, Shay, and Hunter leave the apartments at the Grove and head back to Stephen's car.
I heard the door behind us open, and out came like 6 or 7 guys, I believe, and they were shouting at us, asking what we were doing here, using various cuss words, and just trying to intimidate us, it felt like.
One of them punched Steven, and that was when we were like, okay, this is serious.
It just rocked my world, just really hard.
Were you expecting that to happen?
Not at all.
Had you done anything physically or verbally to provoke that?
Not at all. It knocked my glasses off. Everything went dark, went black, and then as I was getting back up, I felt someone behind me try to grab the back of my shirt, and I started running toward Mountain View.
As Stephen ran back to his car, 3 or 4 people chased him down, while the other Delta Chi members surrounded Jacob and Shay, shoving them to the ground.
I thought they were going to get beat up really bad.
Once Stephen got into his vehicle, he struggled to find his keys and began to panic.
I didn't have my glasses, and I couldn't really see, and my legs were shaking, and I was, panicked, and I realized, oh my God, I have to do something, so I got the gun out of my glove box. I yelled as loud as I possibly could, "Don't move, I have a gun, get on the ground."
I remember seeing Colin with the flashlight right on his face.
One of the 2 men looked like he lunged towards Stephen.
And then I heard gunshots.
The first person who was shot twice just fell to the ground like a rock.
I sprinted and jumped over the bushes that you had pointed out. And that's when I saw Nick Peering midair get hit and fall to the ground as well.
Mikey Scollard, one of the students looking out of the dorm windows, also saw the shooting and ran directly to the victims to give first aid.
I put my palms in his gunshot wounds, told him to stay calm, and told him to calm down because he was screaming and crying. And
I ran toward Colin.
Why did you run toward the shots, Nick?
Because my friend was in trouble.
And what did you see when you got there?
He was on his back. His shirt was covered in blood. His eyes were wide open. He was looking up at the sky.
I'm first aid certified, so I went over to try to treat his wounds.
I believe I tried to get on top of him when he was knelt down, so I could potentially try to get the gun out of the back pocket.
All the rest of them kind of just piled on top of me. kicking and punching and wailing. And one guy was stomping on my stomach, and they were screaming, "You shot my friend, you fucking psycho! And I'll fuck you up. I'll fucking kill you. I was screaming as loud as I could, "Help! Help!" Like a really high, loud scream. Like I thought they were going to get my gun and kill me with it.
According to Stephen, that's when he pulled the gun out of his back pocket and shot into the air, hoping to scare his attackers away.
And then there was another round of gunshots, and then I put my body on top of Nick's.
That was pretty brave, Mikey. What was going through your head?
To be entirely honest, I was preparing for a bullet to go through my back or my head.
I got shot through the neck. It's the most intense pain you've ever felt in your life, pressure-wise and sharpness. But at the same time, the adrenaline and the shock kick in, and you're so amped up that it's almost like you're being numbed, like someone has an ice pack on the wound, but you had just gotten hit with a sledgehammer.
When I turned around to run, just felt something, and I dropped to the ground. It was the most painful thing, but I didn't feel a thing. I just couldn't move.
Following the second round of gunshots, everybody scattered, and the police arrived shortly after.
I was really relieved. I thought, oh my God, I'm safe now. Like the cops are here. I can just go to them and it's all over. It's perfect. They can protect me.
What's the next thing that you remember after that?
Waking up in the hospital. I was shot twice in the back. I had lost a kidney. I had to have some part of my intestines removed and a ostomy bag put on. I had I believe a broken rib, a tube up my nose and down my throat.
It's natural for emotional testimonies like these to evoke a visceral reaction, but it's important to not let this reaction skew your judgment. Looking at the evidence objectively, there are clearly some inconsistencies that need to be addressed. For example, once Stephen got back to his car, he made several drastic decisions that escalated the situation, even though there were safer options.
Let's talk about some of the things you could have done that night. Could have called the police, right?
I didn't think I could have.
You could have locked the door to your car.
I couldn't have.
You couldn't have locked the door to your car?
No.
You didn't have the ability to lock the door inside your car?
I didn't think I could have.
As you sit here today, you know you could have, right?
I think I probably could have.
You could have armed yourself and then gotten out of the car, and when you discovered that nobody was around you, you could have just stayed there, right?
I couldn't just abandon my friends.
Also, Stephen claims that the Delta Chi members chased him back to his car, and he only grabbed his gun because they were closing in on him.
There were those two guys that I mentioned.
Where?
Out the driver's side door.
How far away?
At the time, it seemed like 10 or 15 feet.
However, it turns out that the distance between them was much further than 15 feet.
How much space was there in actuality?
I learned it was 90 feet later.
Okay, so you were just dead wrong on that.
I suppose so, yes.
This meant that not only were the Delta Chi members nowhere near Stephen's car, but after grabbing his gun, he must have walked that entire distance back towards them before he was in any imminent danger. The prosecution believed that this was just one of many examples of Stephen allowing his paranoia to get the better of him, causing him to believe that he was in more danger than he actually was. After all, many of the details that Stephen shared seemed to directly contradict other witness testimonies.
In the very beginning, when they all came out of the house, someone was holding a beer bottle, and I thought I saw them swinging it, or it might have been a rock or something.
Anyone carrying a weapon?
No, not that I know of.
Did you see anybody with any weapons?
No.
Did you see anybody with any weapons?
No, I did not.
The one on the right says, "I'm gonna fucking kill you."
At any point, did you hear someone say, "I'm gonna kill you"?
I did not.
Or, "I'm gonna hurt you"?
I did not.
Did you hear the word kill or anybody threaten to kill anybody?
I do not recall.
Did you hear anything about killing anyone or harming anybody?
No, sir, I never heard that.
I just freaked out, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I need to get my gun.
A gun wasn't necessary.
I thought it was a hostile situation, but there was no point where I thought I was in any situation where my life was at stake.
Another main point of contention was whether or not Stephen shot in the air while being attacked by the Delta Chi members, accidentally shooting Nick Prado and Kyle Zintek.
All the rest of them kind of just piled on top of me.
The prosecution believed that Stephen was never attacked by a group of people at all, and that he took aim at Nick and Kyle in cold blood.
How did you point your hand?
Upward.
Can you demonstrate?
Yeah.
Just straight above your head?
Not fully extended, kind of bent a little bit.
Nick Prado, how do you account for how he got shot through the neck?
I have no idea.
Or Kyle Zintek in the back?
I didn't know at the time.
You would agree that's not shooting into the air, right?
What isn't?
When you shoot someone in the back, that's not shooting in the air?
Even Stephen's friend, Jacob Mike, who was right beside Stephen at the time, claimed that he never saw a group of people gang up on Stephen at any point.
At any point, did you ever see a group of people piling on the defendant?
No.
The defense, however, found it ridiculous that this was being questioned at all. How else would Stephen have gotten so many injuries all over his body? And to support Stephen's claim that he shot the gun in the air, the defense pointed to this tree branch, which was struck by one of the bullets. According to their ballistics expert, the angle that the bullet struck the branch indicated an upward trajectory. There were also 2 bullets that were shot from Stephen's gun that were never recovered. The defense believed that the missing bullets were shot in the air, and that's why the investigators never found them. On the 8th day of the trial, it was time for the closing arguments. The prosecution painted Stephen as a trigger-happy vigilante that wanted to show Delta Chi who the real alpha was.
The defendant couldn't wait to shoot his gun. He was eager to. Not a second thought to stay in his car, not a second thought to call the police or to drive away. Because his first thought was to fire his gun. His first thought was to retaliate. His first thought was to arm himself with a weapon and show whoever was out there who had the power. Because with that gun in his hands, ladies and gentlemen, he had the power over people's lives. The defendant wanted to enact his own deranged sense of justice, not the justice we have here in this courtroom or that we swore an oath to uphold. No, he wanted to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And the first person who decided to confront him, who dared confront him and challenge him, Colin Brew, he decided to shoot twice in the torso. There's nothing we can do now to bring Colin back. There's nothing we can do now to stop what the defendant did that night. But there's something that you can do today, right now, to find this defendant, Stephen Jones, accountable for what he did and find him guilty on all of the charges. Thank you.
The defense, on the other hand, told the jury that regardless of what led up to the shooting and the escalation that happened afterwards, lethal action was justified the moment Colin and Nick Peering charged Stephen.
Ask yourself, would you want to take a chance on letting these guys tackle you and get that gun? That's the viewpoint that you have to look at this case from. What would you do if you were standing there and these guys were charging at you? You're not deciding whether it was wise for him to leave the car. He had every right to leave that car and walk up to that scene. It's not a situation any of us would want to ever be in. But under these circumstances, with these 2 guys charging right at him, he acted reasonably. He did not have a choice. The prosecutor is trying to sell you this bill of goods that he premeditated, that he was retaliating, that he's an assassin on a rampage, none of which is consistent with the facts. It's frankly laughable to try and claim that Stephen is an assassin. Now, when you look at all the evidence in this case, there is no doubt whatsoever that he's innocent of all of these charges. We expect you to find the same.
They rested their case and the jury was sent to deliberate. After 5 days of thoroughly reviewing and discussing the evidence, the jury re-entered the courtroom with shocking news.
Mr. Foreperson, I have been informed that the jury has indicated that you do not feel that additional deliberations or assistance will help you in reaching a verdict. Is this correct? Correct. All right. This court is therefore going to declare a mistrial in this case.
Following this mistrial, the prosecutors vowed to try Stephen's case again, determined to get justice for Colin and the surviving victims. After several delays, his retrial was scheduled to take place in 2020. this time for a lesser charge of second-degree murder rather than first-degree murder. However, before this would happen, Stephen was offered a plea deal. The deal would reduce his second-degree murder charge to manslaughter, and he would only be sentenced to anywhere between 5 and 10 years in prison. Ultimately, Stephen accepted this deal, and he was booked into the Coconino County Jail. On February 11, 2020, his sentencing hearing took place, and Cullen's mother was finally given the opportunity to express her grief to the court.
I miss him. I miss his smile. I miss his voice. I miss his infectious laugh. Some nights I wake up in a cold sweat in fear of forgetting any part of him.
She urged the judge to give Stephen the maximum possible sentence for the suffering he had caused.
Because he did cause catastrophic damage that night and a rippling effect that goes on and on.
As Stephen listened, he couldn't hold back his tears. But there was no sympathy from Nick Peering, who believed that Stephen was a danger to society.
He has proven that he's capable of taking away one life and was not afraid to take away at least 3 more.
Stephen was also given a chance to speak. He expressed remorse for his actions and accepted responsibility for Cullen's death.
If it were possible, I would, in a heartbeat right now, just trade places with Cullen Brew. If he could be at home with his family, I would do that.
In the end, Stephen was sentenced to 6 years at the Red Rock Correctional Center in Eloy, Arizona, and was required to serve at least 85% of his time before he could be eligible for parole. On August 19, 2024, after serving 4.5 years in prison, Stephen was released on parole.
Colin was a kind, beautiful, loving soul with a bright, bright, bright smile that would light up any room that he entered. I think about Colin often, and I think about that night, and it's just a horrible memory to have. You know, it still really hurts. There's times where I have moments where I just break down and cry, or, you know, his birthday, I break down and cry. I feel that the justice system failed in this case.